Hi, this is John with Fix It Planet. Today we're going to take a look at this PlayStation 4. This is the CUH-1001A. This is a pretty old unit. It's been around for a while. There's lots of videos and repair guides out there on it, but we don't have one on our channel. This one has a damaged HDMI port. If you look down in there, you can see this one's pretty messed up. And we are going to replace the HDMI port. Now, this video is actually going to be just tearing it apart and putting it back together. We're also going to show how to clean it out, how to change your thermal paste, things like that. And we'll do the HDMI port replacement in a separate video, which we'll put the link in the description down below if you'd like to see how that's done. So this panel here just slides off to the left. It's not held on with any screws or anything. That gives you access to your hard drive if you need to change that. It just has the one screw holding in the hard drive with the caddy. All that comes out together. And you just need a Phillips head screwdriver for that. Now there's 4 security screws on the back that are covered up by these plastic stickers. And we're just going to warm those up a little bit just to soften up the adhesive so they'll come off a little easier. Now I think iFixit uses a T9 security Torx. We're going to use a T8 security Torx. The difference between the regular Torx and the security is the hole in the center of the tip there, because there is a post sticking out in the center of the screw, preventing you from using a regular Torx screw. I always seem to have problems with the T9. So I just use the T8. But whatever works for you. Now the bottom cover, it actually comes off pretty easily. You can just sort of pull it towards you from the back side here. Snap the edges loose and it just slides right off. You have to slide it forward a little bit. Now the dirt in the fan and along the side here, we're going to blow all that out with some high pressure air when we take it outside. You can see it's magically disappeared. Now these 2 screws, they're Phillips, but they're the only 2 screws like it. And then we have 3 more Torx screws that we need to remove to get this power supply out. Now this thing's kind of stuck down in there. This cable right here is plugged in on the side of the power supply and down into the motherboard. You can just see it down inside there. And you just have to rock it back and forth while sort of lifting up. And then it'll come right out. Now there's a cable there that doesn't have a whole lot of slack in it, so you want to make sure that you don't yank that off. I disconnect it from the motherboard, but I've seen other repair guides that show them taking it off from the power supply. Whichever works for you. Those 2 little slots down in there, I'll show you these 2 pins that just go up inside there. these two pins right here. And that's the Wi-Fi antenna right there. It's attached to the motherboard. We just need to disconnect that. Now we've got a couple cables. There's this one here. We need to get that one out and unplugged. And this cable here we need to remove. You just press that metal bracket right there, push it down and pull that cable out. This cable right here is in our way. We need to get that out of our way. There's a screw under there we want to get to. So we just rock the connector back and forth as we pull it out. And they're sort of routed in the locations. There's the screw we want right there. The one to the right. So we have that screw. And this screw. And this screw. And this screw. Those are 4 Torx screws holding the optical drive in, and we also have one small Phillips at the very front. Now that those are out, we can remove the optical drive. Again, just kind of rock it back and forth and be gentle with it. Because underneath, all the gears are exposed. So don't tear up any of that. So we have 2 screws that are holding this plastic cover on the right here. And it's a little more difficult to get off. Best way I know how to describe it is just to kind of pull it forward a little bit, try to separate the side somewhat and get this corner free. It takes a little bit of effort, but once it's free, it comes off pretty easily. Be careful of this metal. This little piece of metal here, that's for your power button. So we can go ahead and disconnect this connector. And take out the rest of these Torx screws. So that would be a total of 12 screws that are Torx. And then we have 2 Phillips screws here we need to take out. So the motherboard is sandwiched between 2 metal shields. And you've got right here in these locations, you've got some thermal pads. You notice some of them stayed on the metal shield there. We're just going to go ahead and take these off and move them over to the metal shield. It doesn't matter whether you do this or not, but you don't want to lose them. You want to make sure that they are there when you go to put all this back. Now you can see the old thermal paste here on the heat sink. We're going to scrape that off, just using a nylon spudger. And we'll also scrape it off of the CPU. And we'll use a little bit of alcohol to clean the leftover residue. There's that HDMI port, and it's all jacked up. And that's what we're going for. We're going to take that off and put a new one on. You can see it's bent as well. Now there's some more of those thermal pads on that side as well, so be sure that you pay attention. Don't want to lose those. We've already put the HDMI port on, so we're ready to put this back together. Before we do, we're going to put some fresh thermal paste on the CPU. And it doesn't have to be pretty, but we don't want to put more than is necessary. We want just enough so that it will spread out evenly across the CPU when we go to put everything back together and sort of sandwich it between the two metal shields and the heatsink. Make sure all your thermal pads are in place. Lay it straight down on top. So you can see some of those thermal pads are stuck here on the metal bracket, on the metal shield here. Just make sure they're all present. Go ahead and plug this back in, and then once we have all this back in place, we'll be able to put the clamp back down on top of the CPU. So there's our new HDMI port, but the plastic's not quite centered yet. There we go. Now when we go to put these two screws down, we're going to tighten them down, and all that thermal paste on the CPU is going to evenly spread across that processor. Can set our optical drive down in there. start putting our screws back. Now, I left out one of those screws in the top right corner there in the video. This one right here. Here we go. Now we can reroute our cable back down in here. Plug it back in. Go ahead and reroute our Wi-Fi antenna. And our flexible flat cable. Now we're ready for our power supply. Go ahead and plug it in. Slide it back down in there. So putting the bottom on is not too difficult. Be sure you watch out for this little metal piece here for your eject button. It's going to touch right here. Just slide it over and seat it down. Same thing on this top cover. We've got the little metal piece here that is for your power button. Watch out for that. And that's for your power button. And it touches right here. So we have to slide, there we go, we slide that over and then snap it down. It takes 2 screws to hold it in place. And now we're ready for this left cover, which just slides back into position. Then we have 4 security screws on the back. And we'll put our security stickers back on. And there's our new HDMI port, all ready to go and test. We'll put it on the bench and check it out. We don't have a controller connected yet or a game in it. We're just going to turn it on, see if we get any video. Take a look at the big screen up here. Looking good. So we have video and sound coming through our HDMI port. We'll connect up a controller here when the customer comes to pick it up and give it a little test while they're here. Remember, we will do the HDMI port replacement video in a separate video. We'll put the link in the description down below if you'd like to see how that's done. Hopefully you found this useful or interesting. If you did, like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.